Joe Trippi has been there, man. He is 1 week out from the Iowa caucus with a candidate who was the front runner and supposed to win. And, Joe, I don't mean to point out what happened. We all know that Howard Dean didn't end up winning. John Kerry came out of nowhere and won. But that means that you know a little bit about what can happen in this final week in Iowa. So thank you for joining us. And the way you look at it right now, really, is it neck and neck? WHO-TV in Ames, has just come out with a brand new poll of likely caucus goers that put Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders as in a statistical dead heat. How important is it that the poll is likely caucus goers versus a lot of these other polls?
Well, first of all, thanks for the memories, Brian.
That was actually Larry. I wouldn't have done that,
Larry, I'm sorry. Always good to be with you guys. I can count on that. Sorry, Larry. But no, look, the two are in a dead heat, and I think that it doesn't really matter a whole lot which one of them wins it, other than what the media and all of us are going to make of it, obviously, that if Bernie wins. But the reality is Iowa is just not that important a state in the democratic process. It winnows the field down, and then after New Hampshire is when the process actually begins.
Joe, Bernie's ahead by double digits in New Hampshire. If he wins Iowa and New Hampshire, you know history. Has there ever been a candidate who have lost Iowa and New Hampshire and went on to win the presidency?
Yeah, Bill Clinton did it in '92. Lost Iowa went with Harkin, and
Iowa wasn't really contested that year.
And
though,
New Hampshire went with Tsongas. He didn't win either of those two states. It's not about that. And by the way, back in those days, the country was about 88% white, and Iowa and New Hampshire were 92 and 94% white. Mm-hmm. They're still 92 and 94% white. The country now isn't anywhere near that. And reality is the Democratic Party, after you leave New Hampshire, is about 44% non-white, where Hillary Clinton is destroying Sanders 69 to 23, plus her strength among women against him, makes it, literally the two best places in the planet for him to run are Iowa and New Hampshire. Iowa, where 43% of the electorate, of the Democratic electorate, the caucus attenders, identify themselves as socialists, only 38 as capitalists. The only state that ranks higher than that is the state that sent him to the Senate, Vermont. So you've got the most liberal Democratic Party in the country in Iowa, and his neighboring state of New Hampshire to Vermont. If he cannot win in those two states, he can't win anywhere. Now, if he does, I understand what a lot of people believe, that, hey, that happened for Obama in Iowa, and then the floodgates opened up. But what happened in those floodgates were that 44% non-white that the party becomes after New Hampshire, that makes up the party post-New Hampshire, was was looking at a guy who could be the first African American in history to become president of the United States with a real shot at it, and they moved to him 80% to 20% over Clinton. I just don't think that's going to happen for Sanders. I mean, he shoots to 60-40 or they 50-50, but he's not going to get to where Obama got, and Obama barely defeated her. So at this point, we'll see what happens, but I don't think Bernie winning Iowa is as significant as most of the pundits are making out.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this question about Hillary, and her numbers seem to have been tanking of late, and many people have been trying to figure that out. I'm wondering how much of it has to do with this sense among Republicans and Democrats that perhaps she might be indicted, and therefore we ought not put our eggs in that basket. Do you think Democrats are thinking that way, or do they even care about that?
I don't really think they're looking at it that way at all. I mean, I think all these attacks on her, on Benghazi and the emails, are actually help solidify her within the Democratic Party. You look at her favorables; they're sky high. So are Bernie's, by the way, which is kind of a difference on our side in that there really isn't a whole lot of negative feeling towards any of the candidates, even OMalley. It's not that people don't like him; they've just they've just decided for Bernie or decided for Hillary. And the same is true of both Bernie and Hillary. There's no real high negatives. maybe 20% of the party has a negative on her or him, but nothing significant like you see on the Republican side, where large chunks of the Republican Party are saying they won't support Bush or they won't support Trump no matter what.
And the other question has to do with Martin O'Malley, who has been, largely ineffective in his campaign. But let's say he's got 5% in Iowa, and he doesn't make the threshold. Where do you think his delegates are going to go?
That's a tough one. I agree with you. It's an important factor because that 5-6% or whatever does show for him if he doesn't make threshold. You're going to have to pick somebody else in that room. There's only two choices. My guess is that they go, that if he, in his campaign, the campaign strategically would want them to go to Bernie, only because it's better for him if the front runner does collapse and then it's, and there's chaos, that's probably a better shot. I mean, either coming in a surprise second would be the best thing for him, obviously, but doesn't look like that's going to happen. Probably the best thing for him to have any shot at a reason to continue the candidacy is sort of chaos and and things falling apart around him, and then maybe he can pick up some of the pieces as the fight goes on. I don't think either of those two things are likely, but those are his two best opportunities. I agree. He's been actually running a great campaign. The problem is he just can't break through with all the focus on Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton.
He's running a great campaign. He just needs a better candidate. Joe Trippi, I'm saying that, not Joe Trippi, by the way.
Yeah,
he's a fine Democratic Party strategist, and he knows his stuff, and that's why we're glad you're with us, Joe. Thanks so much.